Hello, I'm Erin, and I'm here today to tell you a story. This is a story about Andrew and Jacob, just two boys who grew up in southern New Jersey, where dual sport riding is plentiful. No, not this New Jersey, but this New Jersey. Both enjoyed dual sport motorcycle riding, both with their DR350s. Andrew kept his beloved DR350 clear up until 2021, when Honda offered a refreshing comparable model. But Jacob, on the other hand, gave in to the dark side a long time ago. Is there still hope for such a friendship? Will the dark overtake the light? This is that story.
What's up guys, it's Andrew and I'm back with a new video on motorcycles off-road. I hope you liked the little intro. Dramatic, yes, but I like to change up the introductions just to keep it interesting. In this video, we're going to review and compare the DRZ400 to the Honda 300L. This video was brought on to you guys by a vote on the channel. So thanks to everyone for their input. You guys seem to really enjoy the Honda 300L and the KLX300 reviews, so I will try to keep this one at a similar level of quality and breakdown. As with all my reviews, there's going to be a ton of facts thrown in with my personal opinion. To do the DRZ justice, there's no way around it. This is going to be a lengthy video, so get comfortable. But first, it has to be said, because people are the way they are, a lot of these points are going to be my opinions, and if you disagree, I welcome the comments below. I'll never dismiss someone for having a difference of opinion. We can talk it out below, and I'm always open to discussion, and I respect anyone who has the passion to throw the leg over a motorcycle. So on to the review. Full disclosure, this is not the first time I rode a DRZ400, nor is this the first time I rode a DRZ. I've even rode this very bike multiple times off-road. Also, I have some riding experiences riding the 400E, which is the off-road model of this bike, which belongs to a close friend of mine. And it's even in my pole barn right now, as I just rebuilt the carburetor and I'm adjusting the valves. So I am quite familiar with this bike. And here's how I'm going to break down the review. I broke it down into several sections to try to be more clear and concise. I feel the DRZ is a special bike, and I feel like we should compare it to the Honda 300L. Why? Well, if you're looking into dual sport riding, both of these bikes are two really great options. And in fact, if you're really serious about it, and you have been looking pretty hard, probably looked at least one of these two bikes in the past as an option. And rightfully so. I mean, the DRZ is still sold at the dealers today new, and is one of the best dual sports you can buy with your money. Definitely for value versus price and what this bike actually offers. But the question is it time for this older bike to be retired, refreshed, or something else take its place? So let's go over the specs real quick. The DRZ has a 398cc single-cylinder carbureted engine. It is a liquid-cooled 4-stroke. This bike has been mostly unchanged since its production in year 2001, when it replaced the DR350, which was my favorite bike, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. The DRZ weighs 319 pounds wet with a C height of 36.8 inches. It produces 33 horsepower and 25 foot-pounds of torque. It is coupled with a 5-speed transmission. Its supposed top speed is recorded at 94 miles per hour, and it gets roughly 44 miles per gallon. It is also available in a Supermoto variant, which I haven't ever seen in person until 2 weeks ago when somebody brought it out to the trail when I was riding. Actually, it was pretty sharp. The MSRP of the DRZ comes in at $67.49, whereas on a Honda is $53.49, putting the DRZ MSRP at $1,400 more. Ouch. That's a lot. Though I can make the counter argument in saying, since the DRZ is unchanged, you could probably just get a used one and not have to pay full MSRP. But for reviews like this, I like to compare them new, because there's something to be said about buying the bike from the dealer and you know the bike has never been abused, never been destroyed by some animal who skips service intervals or something crazy like that. So what do all these specs mean to somebody who maybe is getting into dual sports? Not much, right? But let's take a couple minutes to talk about its viability on and off-road, and then we'll circle back and compare some of these specs so we can get a better understanding of how they'll play a part when it comes to the handling and the power of this bike. When it comes to the road, to be blunt and cut to the chase, if you want a dual sport to do more road than off-road, I would say the Honda 300L will ultimately win out. I would say the DRZ, it handles pretty good on the road. It's good at getting up to speed and has plenty of power, and being a dual sport, it's light and nimble, so you could weave in and out of traffic depending on what your area is like. you're getting a pretty reasonable 44 miles per gallon, and on the highway, it holds its own with little issue. The 5-speed transmission is spaced out in such a way that on freeways, you can still stay up in the speed. Compared to the Honda, the big thing here is the Honda is new to 2021, and it's modern and it feels modern compared to a 20-year-old bike. So when I first took the Honda 300L home, the owner of the DRZ, Jacob, rode my 300L, and he commented on how amazingly smooth this bike was. He said it felt like he was riding a road bike and didn't even seem like he was riding like a semi-dirt bike. In a Honda 300L, like much newer bikes, it's balanced really well, and it has counterbalancing for the single-cylinder engine, so you don't get as much vibration. Long trips on the road with a DRZ, or older bikes like this, you're going to leave your butt hurting and your feet numb. I would say the 300L feels a lot better than this. Now keep in mind, these are both single-cylinder engines, so anytime you have them on a freeway or a highway, longer than 20 minutes, you're going to start to notice. Now also compared on the highway, the Honda 300L has a lower top speed at 85 miles an hour, where the DRZ has a 94, but honestly neither of that matters because you're already at highway speeds. And if you need to go any faster than that, or you're traveling long distances, then maybe you should look into something more on the range of a adventure motorcycle, a touring motorcycle, rather than a dual sport. And actually off topic for a second, I did a video called The Best Dual Sport Ever, Honda 300L, and in that video mainly what I was talking about is a chart between a dirt bike and a touring adventure motorcycle and everywhere in between, and every single person's needs in a motorcycle fall somewhere on this chart. It's a good video to help you find out which bike is best for you. So if you're interested in that, I'll pin that in the comments below and I'll leave a card right here. So if you're coming into this as a blank slate and you're looking for your one motorcycle to get, I would have to once again say the Honda 300L, the display is amazing. Not only are you getting everything the DRZ offers, you're also getting a gear indicator, a tachometer, a fuel gauge, which that's a big one, and the computer is telling you how many miles per gallon you're currently getting. On the DRZ, well, you have a tripometer and you constantly have to guess how much gas you have, open up the gas cap and swish it around a little bit. I mean, hey, it's a simple bike. That's what you get with a simple bike. So on the road, the Honda is a bit more economical, coming in at 74 miles per gallon versus the DRZ's 44. Another key point to note is that the Honda 300L can also come with ABS, which is great for beginner riders. It's great for people who just want that extra bit of safety. And then in fact, I've been learning recently that in some countries, they can't even offer the KLX300 because it doesn't have an ABS model. Just something to think about. Okay, as far as brakes, now one thing I noticed when I rode the DRZ side to side right after getting off my Honda is the brakes. The brakes on the DRZ are very squishy, and when they finally do grab, you get a lot of dive. So the Honda wins out in the brake department. And then lastly, suspension. So the DRZ suspension is stiff and it's good for off-road. The Honda is more soft and feels amazing on-road. So once again, this one's up to personal preference, but I will say that some of that $1,400 price markup from the DRZ definitely went into the suspension because it definitely has a little more of an aftermarket feel. If you find any value in this video at all and you find it entertaining at all, please hit the like button down below and subscribe to keep this channel growing. And I will try to continue to make more videos like this. And this is where we're about to move into the off-road section of this video. It's about to get interesting. Okay, off-road. Depending on your riding style, this is where the DRZ may shine through a bit more. The DRZ offers more ground clearance, more low-end torque, and much better off-road suspension. On the other hand, both of these bikes will climb anything I put them up against. Although both bikes will need new tires, neither stock tire does particularly well. Though I will say the advantage here goes to Honda. The IRCs, in my opinion, perform a lot better than the Breakstones, the Death Wing. Some people argue that you can't take bikes like this through single track and super tough terrain. I would say you're completely wrong. That is up to your skill level and how much you're willing to compensate for the bike compared to something made completely different for this type of track. It can definitely be done. And Jacob and I, we have both ran our bikes up and down some really tough single trail. In my opinion, for the price, there's not many bikes out there that are going to be better than the DRZ off-road. You're getting a lot for the price. Because Suzuki has not changed this bike in so long, they're able to still make profit on this platform without having to redo research and development or any costly emissions or ABS upgrades. I mean, of course, there's bikes out there that will do better off-road, but at this price point, the DRZ is one of the best. Now, if I had to play devil's advocate to my last statement, I would say if you added fuel mapping, exhaust, and a rear suspension, maybe even a rear sprocket, you'd probably blow away the DRZ with the Honda CRF300L, and you'd be around the same price point. Me personally, I've always had a love-hate relationship with the DRZ. The bike to me always feels like it wants to stand straight up in the air or just completely lay down right on its side. The 300L is much more balanced and its center of gravity feels so much better. I even feel more confident standing on the 300L. Now the Honda is only 10 pounds lighter, but on tight track it feels 50 pounds lighter. Along with my opinion, I would like to also include this clip that I stumbled upon randomly. This was a clip from a video from another YouTuber who was comparing a Husqvarna 701 to a CRF300 Rally, and randomly he started talking about the DRZ400, and I couldn't help to agree with him despite everything in me wanting to like the DRZ more. He made some really valid points, so let me show you that clip real quick.
300, all that stuff. I find it a lot more easier to ride on this stuff because the power is so linear. So is this guy, but it's just there's so much more usable power when you compare it to all the new modern small bore dual sports like the CRF300L. The modern bikes feel so much better. Secretly, it should be the power and the torque of this DRZ400. Now, although the CRF300L is slightly heavier than this DRZ400E, the CRF300L Rally and even the normal dual sport feels way better. So much better on the road, on the trails, the ergonomics of comfort.
So you may ask, why not the DRZ400? It is lighter than the KLX and CRF, and of course, the Rally. But believe it or not, the CRF feels more confident, inspiring off-road, feels more nimble, and is much easier to ride due to its modern ergonomics, modern engineering, and how the weight is displaced. It's pretty crazy to think that all bikes feel the same until you ride it back to back on various terrains. Only then will you appreciate the modern engineering behind it.
And by no means am I saying the DRZ is a bad bike. I mean, clearly this guy doesn't think so either because he owns one. In all my experiences with the bike, it's been a beast. Yes, the Honda's more nimble. Yes, the Honda's very capable off-road. But I'll say the one thing you get with the DRZ that you don't get with that Honda is when you grab a handful of throttle and you feel that spike of adrenaline as the bike rips you forward. In big open trails and straight lines, I would have to say the DRZ wins out. But in cornering or anything tight, I prefer the Honda. So it really depends on what kind of off-roading you're going to do and what's available to you in your area. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable climbing up a bunch of rocks, loose stones with the DRZ. Okay, so now let's take another look at the specs and compare them, and I can give you guys a little bit of insight on why I bought my Honda 300L over DRZ, because in my wait for the Honda 300L, I could have easily bought a DRZ400. For me, it had a lot to do with my beloved DR350S. Looking at the chart I made, you can see pros and cons to each bike. The first thing you may notice, though, is looking at the DRZ and the Honda, they weigh more than a DR350, which of course adding a more efficient liquid cooling system will do that. Radiators hold fluid, and they hold weight. For off-road, if you want a more powerful, torquey machine, the DRZ wins out. On the other side, the Honda offers fuel injection, which gives you more comfortable linear power range. And also, no longer will your bike run like crap when you reach down to sea level and all the way up to the mountains with the carburetor because the air is lighter and it's running too rich. Fuel injection also gives you an advantage of simple mapping with devices that you can easily put in line of your fuel injection and hook a laptop up to change your air and fuel mixtures. I use the Power Commander 5 in my SV650. That was the fuel injection model, 2019, and I could download a map for my specific aftermarket parts and just punch it right in, and the bike ran beautifully. Also, the trans for me is a big deal. I'm a 6-gear kind of guy. I've rode with 6-gear for so long on my road bikes and my DR350 that I always find myself reaching up for the next gear when I'm riding a DRZ400. I will say this is not as bad when you ride something like the DRZ400E, the off-road version, and the reason being is because the gears feel more spaced out when it comes to the road dual sport version, and an off-road bike simply has more power. The easiest way to see this is that the DRZ-E has a bigger rear sprocket, which gives you more low-end torque and a closer gear spacing with the same transmission. To me, it just feels more comfortable. The Honda also offers a close-range first 5 gears and extended 6th gear, which I happen to really like that. The Honda also offers a nice slipper clutch, so if you're like me and you rely a lot on engine braking, this is actually a little more forgiving for newer riders. Coupled with the fact that if you are brand new, high revving and releasing the clutch a little too fast won't buck you as much. Another key factor for me is my height. I'm 5'10" with a 32-inch inseam. I feel really comfortable on a 35-inch seat height. I feel more stable. I can easily flat foot 1 foot, almost 2. Whereas when we changed from the DR to the DRZ, it moved the seat height up to 37 inches. Now sure, there is some advantages to higher bike. More ground clearance off-road is a big one. But that around 1 to 1.5 inch ground clearance doesn't really help me when I don't feel confident on the bike in the first place. If you move to the comfort department, the DRZ stock seat will destroy you. Luckily, Jacob went with a seat concept seat. It just took one day of a nice long ride with my buddy Nick, Jacob, and I, and the next time I saw the bike, it had a seat concept seat. But let's also talk about some awesome pros of the DRZ. One big thing is simplicity. I know that gets thrown around a little bit way too much, but just first hear me out. You have a bike that has no elaborate computer fuel system, less parts to go bad, easy to fix. Not only that, not being fuel injection, you can bump start this bike. Carbureted engines, as long as your ignition's on, you can get a running start or find a hill, and you can start the bike up even if your battery dies or gets ripped off the bike somehow on the trail. This is a perfect bike for one of those guys that's really into prepping and survival as well. You could literally fix many parts of this bike with random parts you just find around. Simple hose clamps, JB weld, Gorilla tape, that'll do the trick with a lot of parts on this bike. Honestly, talking about that, if you're into prepping and survival, there's 2 bikes I would consider, and one would be the DRZ and the other would be the TW200. And to me, which one is best for you would really depend on your height, because both of those bikes, single cylinder carbureted engines that last forever. Another big positive of the DRZ is parts. They're easy to find, they're cheap, they're everywhere. 20 years of production will do that. Whereas for the Honda, as of August 2021, I'm still waiting on research and development for new ECUs and exhaust systems. There's some exhausts out there, but not quite the ones I want. When you are considering one of these 2 bikes, one big thing to think about is service intervals. Both of these bikes are awesome when it comes down to service intervals. The Honda's manual calls for an oil change once every 8,000 miles and an oil change and filter once every 16,000 miles. And when you change the oil, it's just 1 plug. And when you change the oil and filter, it's 1 plug, a gasket, and a filter. Can't get more simpler than that. The DRZ is a little more complex, but it's not too bad. Oil changes every 3,500 miles. And I think I read the filter was 11,000 miles. Though changing the oil on this bike, you got to remove the skid plate. You got to drain the oil out of the frame. You got to drain the oil out of the case. And there's 2 crush washers you have to replace. Suzuki loves doing that. Then when it comes time for the filter, once again, 2 crush washers, but then the filter, 2 O-rings, and that's it. It's not too bad. Once you've done it once, you can do it again in like 15-20 minutes. So on the side of reliability and oil change intervals, both of these bikes really hit the mark. The Honda 300L will last forever, as its predecessor to 250L, which is basically the same engine, just with a longer stroke, and some people have even been able to get these things to travel 100,000 miles. So if we move on to aesthetics, just for a minute, there's not much to say here. It's mostly based off personal preference. The Honda looks new, sharp, aggressive. The DRZ looks how you would expect a dirt bike to look if it was 20 years old. I will say I really like Jacob's DRZ though. The black with the black rims, and now he has the black handguards. It almost looks like something you would see out of Mad Max. So which bike should you buy? Well, that is the question. I tried to go into this whole video as if you guys were new to dual sporting and didn't know what to buy, just so I could lay out as much information as possible. Try to show off the positives, one versus the other, and I would say both bikes are great, but offer different experiences. Though I feel a lot of people, the seat height is going to be a big contributing factor for which one of these 2 bikes they buy, especially when you're a newer rider. Unless you're tall or very experienced, the DRZ could feel demoralizing. As a new rider, there's nothing worse than dropping your bike and losing confidence in your riding ability for the rest of the day. But you also have to think about price. You could maybe get a used DRZ for cheaper that it could outperform the Honda. Then if you're willing to buy a Honda and put some parts into it, it could definitely outperform the DRZ. So which bike you choose is again entirely up to you. If I had to rate this bike, it does fit in my top 5 dual sports of all time. I put the DRZ at 3rd place under the KLX300 at 2nd and the Honda 300L at number 1. And that would be my personal selection. What about you? Which one would you guys pick? Or which one do you have? I know there's a big following for the DRZ, and hence why I made this video this long, and I tried to be as honest as possible with my experiences and my feelings towards the bike. The bike demands respect. It's been around for a long time and still good to today. I just can't imagine being the guy that in like 2001 you took the chance and you bought the first year model of the DRZ. You just jumped on this bike and you were like, yeah, this thing is awesome. And you could still be riding that very bike today, and based on my opinion, you had 20 years out of a bike that just blows most other bikes away. So you DRZ owners, you should be proud. You invested your money wisely and your bikes are awesome. Just up to personal opinion, it's just not my favorite bike. Well guys, once again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really appreciate it if you watched this long, and I appreciate all you guys have taken the journey with me to grow this YouTube channel. I try to answer every single comment, and I love talking to you guys, so be sure to leave something down below, because I definitely take time out of every day to try to catch up on the comments when I can. My goal is every single one. So thank you guys, my name is Andrew, and this is Motorcycles Off-Road. Stay safe, guys.